So the following story is one that's been told to me by dozens of technical experts over the last few months, and it goes something like this. Once upon a time, I dreamed about becoming a software engineer or a data scientist or a game developer. And I really dreamed about spending all my time in my happy place doing the thing that I love best, which was solving problems and building cool stuff. And instead, I found myself now in my dream role, but what am I actually doing most of the time? Dealing with people. I'm going from meeting to meeting, dealing with all these different personalities, different ways of working, different opinions on how things should be done. And it's actually exhausting. I did not sign up for this. So this talk is for you if you resonate with this story, or if you just want your work that you're doing now to be a bit smoother, and if you want to find another way of working with humans in the work that you're already doing that is just a bit less painful, a bit more seamless, more enjoyable, so that when you come to work, you're having more of that, collaboration and harmony in the work that you're doing. So in this talk, I'll go through three main things. The first thing is how to get more done with less by using facilitation. The second one is what I've learnt by surveying over 100 different technical experts at the CSIRO in what they're already using facilitation for. And then we'll look at the three main things that you can do right now today, as soon as you leave this talk, to facilitate with a bit more ease. So I have no idea why you're all here today. It could be for many reasons. You might have been dragged here today. You might have seen the topic and immediately resonated with it, thought it would be interesting. You might have misread it and thought it said fascination in tech. I have no idea. Have a look at these 6 images here and tell me. So you're going to hold up your hand and show me a number of fingers. Which one of these images best represents how you currently feel about facilitation? Just hold up your hand in the air. So we've got a number 5, which is the lasso of truth. We've got some number 4s walking through mud. We have clowns. We have people fighting. Anybody, it's like riding a bicycle? Oh, yep. See some? We've got some that cannot be defined by the numbers on here. I love that. So for me, this is how I would represent facilitation. It has a real dual nature. So on one hand, as you can see here on the left, when it goes well, does it go well? It's magical. People in a room collaborating, amazing ideas emerging out of the group, and it's just a cause for celebration. It's why we like working with other humans. But on the right here, we have this image here. This is how I often feel as a facilitator. I feel like a sausage in between a bun of competing priorities and competing objectives. So in my particular role, I'm juggling all these different things. On one hand, being a fierce advocate for the end user. On the other hand, being a fierce advocate for the project stakeholders, internal and external. Making sure that the organization's goals, the business goals are being taken into account. And in my particular situation, making sure that we bring value for money for the taxpayer. That's you. So all of those things going on in my head as I'm facilitating. And of course, whenever you're working with people, you're working with diversity. Facilitation is one of the most powerful tools that you can use to navigate the complexity that comes with working with other people. So when you think of the word facilitation, generally people think of a lot of different things. Mostly they think of a training course, but it's actually much broader than that. And this is how I define facilitation personally. So it's when you're guiding processes, projects, and meetings, and optimizing time, energy, and resources. So what that looks like generally is a person that is guiding a group, guiding the group processes and communication, and making sure that all of those people are aligned and working towards some kind of goal together in a way that is hopefully harmonious and productive. So as we walk through the Optus Stadium today, and you were inside earlier, you might not have noticed that the air conditioning was on. It just was on. But if it suddenly stopped working, we would notice it really fast. We'd be hot, we'd be sweaty, we'd be uncomfortable. And in the same way, facilitation is very often just that thing that's buzzing in the background in every single organisation that nobody really pays attention to. But when it goes badly, that's when we notice it. So if you've ever been to a meeting that was badly facilitated, and the facilitator let somebody take over the conversation and speak for an hour and not let anybody else speak, If you've been to any kind of training course or workshop, and, well, we can all imagine a terrible workshop. We've all been there, death by PowerPoint, the whole thing, person speaking monotone voice, etc. So it's the kind of thing that's really easy to recognise when it's done badly, but not necessarily to recognise when it's done well. But it is really important to think about it and to talk about it, because as I said, facilitation is one of the most powerful things that you can use to navigate complexity, to navigate ambiguity, to put out fires, to reduce conflict, to work together to a common goal. So before we continue, let's talk about something else that also can be unnoticed, that's there in the background that we might not necessarily think about, and that is sponsors. Our wonderful sponsors today, we have so many of them that have actually made this possible. Here they are. So a big thank you to all of these sponsors that actually keep DDD running. We're so grateful to them. They are absolutely amazing. But let's talk about something that is not so amazing, most meetings. So Atlassian put out a report this year called The State of Teams 2024. You might have read it. And in it, there were quite a few interesting things that came out. So they found that about 3/4 of meetings were ineffective. No agenda, no actions. Why are we there? Who knows? 78% of people struggle to get work done because their week is just full of meetings. And over 50% of people, multiple times a week, are working overtime. They're working for free due to meeting overload. That is exhausting us. 25 billion hours in the Fortune 500 companies around the world are lost due to ineffective collaboration. And the one thing that stood out to me from this report was that over 50% of people were saying that when they're at work, they feel deeply lonely. So here's the thing, we're spending a lot of time with people, going from meeting to meeting, and yet we're feeling disconnected, yet we're feeling alone at work. And why is this happening? Because we actually don't know how to facilitate meetings properly. We are using meetings in the place of email. We're letting certain voices spend more time speaking at meetings. We're not necessarily using agendas. We don't necessarily have actions that we're working towards in a common way. So here's the way I see it. It's become today kind of expected that we have a bit of a pyramid scheme when it comes to meetings. And we're using meetings, we go to a meeting, and what is the action at the end of a meeting? To create another meeting. And then you go to that meeting and it creates another meeting. So this is not okay, right? And one of the things that Atlassian suggests is having a meeting facilitator, which, fully agree with. So before I joined the CSIRO, Australia's National Science and Innovation Agency, I had been facilitating for a long time, about 15 years. And I saw it as a role, right, a career. So you're a facilitator and that is your career. And something started to change when I came to the CSIRO. I spent the first few months talking to all the different technical people that I could find, as many subject matter experts as I could get my hand on. And I was asking them all the questions about how they get stuff done and what their capabilities were and what they were missing in order to be effective and happy at work. And there was this really strong pattern that emerged. This is what people were telling me. I am just going from meeting to meeting. And I'm running these complex, highly technical projects, really high-stake projects, but a lot of my time is actually just spent dealing with other people who work in a different way to me. They might be from a different culture, they might be from another organisation that work differently, they might have a different personality, etc. So these meetings just drag on forever, and not every person's voice is being heard. And the people that aren't speaking, it's not because they have nothing to say. So that's when I started changing my vision of things and realising that facilitation wasn't just something that you could do as a full-time job, it's something that all these people were already doing. And what they were telling me was that they weren't doing it effectively and they weren't doing it with ease. And of course, why would you be doing something effectively and with ease if you didn't see it as facilitation? And in fact, they saw it as something else. They saw it as, I'm running a project kickoff meeting, or whatever the meeting was called. So you need to actually identify it as something before you work on that skill. So I was armed with a really strong hunch and an increasingly trusting manager. I launched a workshop, and I called this workshop Facilitation for Non-Facilitators. And I thought, okay, this needs to be done. Maybe we'll get a handful of people that will come to this workshop and we'll test it out. And nothing could prepare us for the amazing response that we got. Within hours of launching this workshop, we had 50 people signed up. If you've ever run a workshop in an organisation, you know how hard it is to get people to a workshop. 50 people plus 50 more on a wait list. And that was before I'd written any content. That was just opening the registrations. So then I had to get to work and actually design the thing. And I went back and I surveyed as many people as I could to try and understand what they were already doing, what processes they were already guiding and leading, and what their greatest challenges were. And we'll get to those challenges in just a second. But what were people facilitating? I tried to map it. I made this little framework myself, very simple. On a scale of technical to non-technical, structured to unstructured, what were people doing? They were running project meetings of all kinds, team retros, team stand-ups, feedback sessions. They were getting business requirements. They were doing conflict resolution, stand-ups, peer review and feedback sessions, sprint planning, meetings with internal and external partners to get funding, design workshops, training new members, onboarding, creative problem solving, etc. So now I knew two things. I knew that people were hungry for facilitation skills because they had signed up for this workshop. And I also knew that they needed to facilitate with these different tools. I then wanted to synthesize all of the different challenges that people were having. And I synthesized everything that people were telling me and put it down to three main challenges. All right, three main things that people were really, really struggling with. And I wanted to help them answer this question. Where do I start? I'm already doing this, but how do I start to actually improve that and feel more confident? So there were three main things that stood out. The first one was confidence, by far, the absolute biggest challenge people were facing. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question. Would you rather facilitate to colleagues and peers or to strangers? So if you'd rather facilitate to a colleague, somebody that works with you already, put your hands on your head. And if you'd rather facilitate to complete strangers, put your hands up in the air. All right, just as I suspected. This always comes back when I ask this question. In general, people would rather go out to strangers in the middle of the street and talk to somebody out there rather than facilitate to their team or to their colleagues. And part of that is because your colleagues actually know when you're wrong, and you still have to see them tomorrow if you make a mistake. So here are a few things about confidence. The first thing is that if you wait to feel confident, you might never start facilitating. And I always tell people, I've been facilitating for 15 years or so, and before every single workshop without fail, I am so tempted to change my name and just leave the country. So I'm so nervous. It's normal to be nervous. First of all, because we deeply care about how things go in a group. Second of all, facilitation is just so unpredictable. You have no idea how it'll go. So it's normal to be nervous. The second thing is that you can actually remove the need for confidence if you replace it with courage. So working on being brave and, being scared but doing the thing anyway. Feel the fear and facilitate anyway. And the third thing is that, especially for, technical people, SMEs, their biggest fear is being seen as incompetent. So I always remind them, what is the role of a facilitator? And you flip it a little bit. So if you are a presenter or a trainer, your role is to be an expert in front of everybody. Everybody's looking at you and waiting for you to give them the answers. But when you're a facilitator, it's actually nothing to do with you. People shouldn't be paying attention to you because it's all about them. So in a facilitator role, you are actually making everybody else look competent, smart, amazing at all times. Neen James, who is a famous facilitator, she says, stand in service and you'll never feel nervous. Speaking of nerves, my mouth is so dry. It's not about you. I always tell people this. Second challenge that people were facing was managing group dynamics. So what is that? It's making sure that everybody has equitable airtime, so people are sharing the opportunity to speak. It's making sure that when there are disagreements, and boy will there be disagreements, that they are respectful disagreements, and also making sure that people are connected and engaged, so your group is actually speaking and getting along. So turn to the person next to you right now. You've got 3 seconds. Tell the person next to you, would you rather facilitate to under-talkers or over-talkers? All right, that was 3 seconds. All right, back to me. So over talkers, it can be tricky, but there are a lot of tools to work. But under talkers, that is really, really hard. Give me a nod if somebody next to you said under talkers. Yeah, all right. So when you have under talkers, one of the tactics that works really, really well, especially with like more reserved people, is to create a low barrier of entry. And I did that exact thing in this talk. So at the start of the talk, I got you to choose a number for which image you preferred. There was no right or wrong, no risk of failure. The second thing we did was hands on your head or hands in the air. Again, no risk of failure because there's no right or wrong answer. And finally, I've gotten you to speak to the person next to you. So it's this little build-up, little by little, to get people in a really safe way to connect with each other. Group behaviour is contagious. So if you start a meeting and everybody's sitting there watching one person speak for a while, you're setting the expectation that you want people to be passive rather than active participants in this meeting. So part of group dynamics is actually being very deliberate with getting people involved in your session. Which brings us to the third main challenge, which was design. And obviously, if you design your session really well, whether it's a meeting, workshop, a strategy session or whatever, it goes a long way to increasing your confidence and also improving group dynamics. So there's something called the expert's blind spot. The more you know about a topic, the harder it is to explain it to others because you know all the different nuances, you know all the different details, and it's all important to you. And so that's why it's really important when you are a technical expert to use some kind of design process. It makes sure that you can actually know what to share and triage all of that content. And it doesn't really matter what design process you use. There are complex ones, simple ones. 2 main things that you need to have in your design. The first is an objective. Why are we holding this meeting? Why are we running this workshop? And the second one is how we'll actually know when we were successful. So it could be that the objective is we agree on the date for a product launch, and the success metric is when we leave this meeting, we have a date. Not we're going to set another meeting, but we're going to leave with an actual specific date. So far we've had multiple cohorts of this facilitation workshop run, and that means we've had a lot of feedback coming through. So remember this person from the start of the talk, this engineer / scientist / developer? They're coming back to us now and they're telling us that their meetings are more smooth, that people who previously were not speaking, they're suddenly speaking, and people that were talking too much, they're actually starting to share the air with others. And they're telling us that there are fewer awkward silences, one of the banes of any facilitator's existence. So things are going really well. People are finding it smoother. They're actually, collaborating and aligning on projects. And they're using tools that we taught them in this workshop, such as Stinky Fish and Elmo. And you can find me in the lunch break and ask me about these. I'd be very happy to share them with you. So what if we saw facilitation not as a soft skill, but as a superpower? And that it helps us reduce wasted time, wasted resources. It helps us boost energy and feel excited about our work. It helps us work towards a common goal as a group. It is a leadership capability for today and the future. So just have a think. Those 3 challenges that I mentioned, confidence, group dynamics, and design, I'd like you to just think in your own mind, which one of those you're going to work on when you leave this talk? Which one of those do you think you'll put just a little bit of effort into looking into, reading about, and improving? And we're going to count to 3. You're going to yell out your word now that I've warmed you up. Are you ready? Confidence, group dynamics, or design. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, amazing. Amazing. Thank you for that participation. You see, I warmed you up from the start, so it's working. So I invite you to think about your next big project or your next work goal that you have right now. And that particular project very certainly involves collaborating with other humans. Humans that have different personalities, different ways of working, different cultural backgrounds, etc. Facilitation might seem like it's outside of the scope of technical work, but I really hope that you're open to considering that this might actually help that technical work. It might make it easier. It might make it more enjoyable and more meaningful. You can use it as an invaluable tool for happy and high-performing teams. And anybody can develop better facilitation skills. Anybody. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you, maybe in the lunch break, or maybe email me in a few weeks from now, and telling me how this has actually improved your meetings and your workshops, and that it's bringing some more ease into your work. So I really encourage you, as you leave here, sharpen your facilitation tools and go do great things. Thank you.